Hi everyone, welcome to our Midweek chat. Through this season of Easter, we're reflecting on the wonderful truth of our faith that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. And in these Midweek chats, we're wanting to, throughout the season of Easter, look at the evidence for the resurrection so that we can each have a greater sense of assurance that what we believe really did happen. Now, a couple weeks ago in the midweek chat, we reflected on the fact that we first have to just accept that a miracle is possible. If you believe in God, if you believe in a God who is creator and all-powerful, then yes, you believe that a miracle is possible. Something supernatural could theoretically happen. So once you believe that a miracle like resurrection could happen, then the question comes, did it really happen? And so I'd like to shift now from that question of could it happen to did the resurrection happen? And I think we have to begin with one fact that is pretty much agreed upon by everyone. Those who proudly proclaim the Christian message and those who doubt. And that is the fact that there was an empty tomb in Palestine 2,000 years ago. Jesus had been crucified, he was buried. The Jewish leaders and the Roman authorities both made sure that the tomb was sealed with a huge stone. The Roman emperor's seal was placed on that stone. Roman guards were stationed to guard the tomb, and those guards had to take their job very seriously because if something were to happen on their watch and the body were stolen from the tomb or something happened, those guards would be under penalty of death because they were guarding something that was sealed with the emperor's own seal. And there's no evidence anywhere in the ancient records that anyone disputed this fact that there was an empty tomb. All the Gospels tell us that the women went to the tomb early on that Sunday morning expecting to anoint Jesus' body. When they got there, the huge stone had been rolled away. So what happened? How do we account for the fact that the tomb was empty? Well, some have theorized that the women simply went to the wrong tomb. But the problem with that is if that's all the explanation, they went to the wrong tomb, someone surely would have pointed out that there was a right tomb, and they would have surely pointed out the fact that Jesus' body was still there in the tomb, if that's all the explanation that the women went to the wrong tomb. So I think we can dismiss that. The suggestion has also been made that maybe those who were opposed to Jesus, the Romans or some of the Jewish religious leaders, secretly had Jesus' body buried somewhere else, or they removed the body from the tomb, just to prevent any kind of shenanigans or any rumors to spread that Jesus, as he predicted, had indeed risen again. But again, the problem with that is, what was the gain for them in moving the body? And if they did move the body, they surely, once these stories were getting out about people seeing the risen Jesus, they could have easily pointed to where the body actually was. So if it wasn't the foes of Jesus that removed the body, what about his friends? There's been widespread doubters who have suggested that maybe Jesus' disciples, or some of them, snuck in and removed Jesus' body. Well, the problem with that argument, one, is that there was this huge stone. Some say it may have weighed up to 4,000 pounds. There were trained Roman guards keeping watch at all the hours of the day and night. Plus, there was the emperor's seal on that stone, and to break the emperor's seal was deserving of the death penalty. So, it would have been great risk for the disciples to do this. They would have been risking their very lives on this almost impossible mission to get through the Roman soldiers, to move this huge stone. And then if they were caught, they would be killed. And remember, these are the disciples that fled just a few days earlier in fear for their very lives. So what would account for such a quick change for them to suddenly be emboldened to go and steal Jesus' body? Somehow, I think we can say that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And of course, it's interesting, we read in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 28, that some of the Jewish leaders, the elders, gave a large sum of money to the soldiers and said, "You are to say his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. And if this should come to the governor's ears, we will help him and keep you out of trouble." So, from the very beginning, this was sort of the rumor that began to spread, that the disciples stole Jesus' body. But we have to ask, would those disciples really have dared to do that, especially the disciples that have been so afraid? Well, I guess there's one other theory that's been offered, and that's the theory that Jesus didn't really die. It's often called the swoon theory, that he just appeared to die. His body was taken down from the cross. He was buried in the grave, but somehow he himself broke out of the tomb. Well, I think you can see that that theory is fraught with all kinds of problems. Crucifixion was brutal. No one who was hanging on a cross would have the strength to get up, roll away a huge stone, overpower Roman soldiers, and somehow get out. And then anyway, what would have happened to Jesus' body eventually? Because if you're saying, well, then Jesus went and ascended to heaven, if you believe in the ascension, why wouldn't you believe in the resurrection? So you play that rumor out, and it just doesn't hold weight. So the women didn't go to the wrong tomb. The foes of Jesus did not steal or move his body. The disciples did not move his body. And it's impossible to really think that Jesus would have broken out of the tomb himself. So then we're led with one option. And that is that something supernatural occurred that frightened the soldiers, that moved the huge stone, and that raised up Jesus, strong and victorious over death. And that's what then changed the disciples and made them courageous. And friends, that's what gives us hope. The tomb was empty because of the miracle of resurrection.